and I'm here to protest the outrage that is Kevin Rudd's announcement about the PNG solution, also what he's doing with Nauru, you know, the deal they've cut this week supposedly with Nauru. You can really see the quite vicious reimposition of Australian imperialism in our region. You know, the disgusting, racist sort of white superiority control of the region, you know, of the islands to the north, that we think you can just sort of dump the problems that, you know, that are so-called problems that they see in Australia on the, you know, on the Pacific region. It's terrible to watch it happen, as well, of course, as the inhumanity in terms of the way that refugees themselves are being treated in the process.
The two major parties in Australia, Rudd and Abbott, are going on a run to the bottom in their inhumanity to people seeking refuge. It's interesting, I think, if you look at the World Wars, where, okay, Australia was said to be a great leader because we went off and fought fascism. We took a moral stand. Now we won't. We're total opposite. We are hiding from our humanity, and I think Australians and those parties have to wake up. For too long we've had two parties in Australia. They've got tired, and all they do is just compete with one another who can be the most inhumane.
It's important to show that not all Australians are sold on racist bullshit. Like, people who actually care about refugees and have compassion for people who are coming from really fucked up situations and want to help them, and that we're not happy with the way the government's treating refugees.
Join the queue to get your...
Because I don't think there's enough of a voice given by the mainstream media to the people that actually do welcome refugees and want them to be treated properly. I think, yeah, the mainstream media is just putting out the two major parties' views and not really focusing on other people's sort of alternatives.
To show an alternative, like, there's no alternative processing in the, like, politicians. It's just like, is this extreme enough, or, you know, the Libs want to go even further, and at this point it's not even sure what that means. But in the papers and the media there's not really alternative. It's just like, you know, reporting on it. Yeah, no, I think so, because I think the biggest groups of migrants to Australia are like British and New Zealanders, and there's no sort of outcry of that. We have this tiny amount of people who are coming from the Middle East or from Asia and fleeing war zones, but there's a big hoo-ha about these people, and they could be terrorists, they could be all this sort of shit. But the difference is that one of those groups of migrants is like rich and white, and the other is like poor and brown. Yeah, I think race plays a really big role in this issue.
Well, I think it's absolutely important for people to raise the issues of the mistreatment of people with regards to human rights issues. I think we're all aware of the rapes and beatings that are turning in places like Manus Island, which is common knowledge in everybody's aware of these things. And it's quite an absurd decision to think that throwing people in such an environment is okay. Everybody in the Australian government is well aware of the abuses occurring there, but because of a political stance, they pretend that nothing is happening. I will never agree with offshore processing. I think Australia, as a signature to the Geneva Convention, is actually breaking the law. If anything, they're dancing very close to the law, and I think it's illegal. Certainly, there's a certain degree to its race, and also a little politicking. It's fear-mongering as well. These are just normal people, normal families, trying to start a new life in Australia. And to start with as well, we are fighting wars in these countries. So if we're not fighting wars in these countries, I find it bizarre that a country as ours, where we're losing soldiers in these countries, and not allowing the people where we're fighting to come and start a new life here.
We should increase the refugee intake. We should actually have places where refugees can seek asylum in other countries and process them quickly and make them part of the community. It's also, believe it or not, an economic question, because the enormous cost of running these things on Manus Island and Nauru would be much less if we actually brought them into Australia and settled them as we have in the past, such as with Vietnamese refugees.
Sends the wrong message when a country that has so many of its own issues of poverty and crime and that sort of thing is being asked to take refugees instead of a country that's, you know, got the second best standard of living in the world taking them. I just think it's a cop out. I think it's a disgrace. I think it's something that we should definitely be fighting against.